and the drummer was like, "Oh, my buddy plays rhythm guitar," and he's like, "Hey, Mike, you play rhythm guitar?" And he's like, "I guess so." So he came walking out, and he had this old Japanese electric guitar. And Tom's like, "Oh God, this is going to be terrible." And he played Johnny Be Good from beginning to end and absolutely ripped it. And Tom's like, "You're in the band." My, how the tables have turned, Brent.
Indeed, they have.
And it's your fault. I had nothing to do with this. You were just like, "Alex, this is what we're going to do."
I thought it'd be fun.
All right. I love it.
You've suffered through like 82 odd episodes of me droning on about rock history, so.
I've taken a lot of notes from you, though, Brent. Taken a lot of notes.
Now it's your time to shine, my friend.
Oh, man, the preparedness that you have for you've got years of preparedness. I don't have that much, but I mean, like, I don't know. I don't really know that much about Tom Petty, really, but, not really like I don't really care that much, about the guy, but, oh, gosh.
Just so people watching know, I don't see any of this stuff coming. I didn't know that you...
No idea, eh?
No.
No. You couldn't tell by the backwards cap? No, I knew it. I was like, I gotta come out. I was actually thinking I was gonna have my Tom Petty sweater on first, and then I'd take that off, and and I didn't know whether to wear my American Treasure Tom Petty shirt or if I should have wore my Full Moon Fever Tom Petty shirt. So I went with the American Treasure. So
the good news is you can always change. We'll have a little intermission. You can be like Madonna. You can go backstage and do a costume change.
Yeah. The only problem is I'm setting myself up here to be like, incredibly disappointing with my factual knowledge. Or everybody can be pleasantly surprised with my factual knowledge. But
I think it's going to be the latter.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
I'm rooting for you.
He's the man. There's just something about Tom Petty that is like, he's so good. The music is so good. And I just love everything about him and the band. And, that's just my feeling. That's just my feeling about him.
What do you think it is when you think about what you love about him? What is it?
I don't know the guy. I never knew the guy. I don't know that I've ever felt like a genuine personality from a rock star like I have from him in readings, like reading about him, reading interviews, listening to interviews. Don't get me wrong. When you listen to him, if you don't know about him being like incredibly humble towards everybody that he's worked with and just especially to his fans as well, you could think that in his interviews he comes off as quite cocky but I think there's a cockiness that you need to have, but he's not like I'm like the best, like Gene Simmons cocky, right? Like he just knows music. It's all he's ever done. He knows writing it. And again, he's like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fans. If it's not for the fans, and he stuck up for the fans, right? They tried to raise album prices on his records, and he's like, not going to happen.
That's a good story, actually.
Yeah, right? And even Wildflowers. That was supposed to be, he wanted Wildflowers to be a double album. But but the record company's like, great, it'll be double the price. And he's like, no, I don't want to be double the price. So he's like, well, it can't be a double album. He's like, all right, fine, we'll do a single album so that I don't have to gouge my fans. Yeah. And that to me is like amazing.
He was a big proponent of that, about price gouging. Like, he vehemently against it, Yeah. Even though he would be making more money, he didn't care.
No, not at all.
How does that story go about the $8.98, $9.98? Remember that? So like the premier artists of that time could charge $9.98 for a record, like Steely Dan and Fleetwood Mac. And so he was still at there was levels, believe it or not. You could $8.98 was what the standard album sold for. and like the Steely Dans and the Supertramps sold for $9.98. And so because Damn the Torpedoes was doing so well, they wanted to bring him up to $9.98. And he said, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no, before Damn the Torpedoes came out, that's what it was. And they said, we're going to put your album out at $9.98. And he said, if you do that, I will withhold the tapes, but I will also, if you get them, I will call the record 898. Like written 8-90-8.
Yeah.
And they said, you know what, we're not going to fight you on that. And so they kept it at 898. That's funny, eh?
Crazy. A lot of fighting around this album for them. This was quite a legal, almost like sabotage in Black Sabbath. Not to that extent, but a lot of legal issues for the band around this record. Mm-hmm. But we'll get into that. But okay. So you said let's do Damn the Torpedoes.
Yeah.
Talk to me. You hit me with one, why Damn the Torpedoes, and two, what do you think of Damn the Torpedoes?
Well, two reasons. So his breakthrough record. So if you talk about an artist like Tom Petty, for me, I love him because he's kind of right in the middle, right, of his time. So this came out in 79. He was not new wave. He was not punk, which were the two kind of overriding, popular genres of the time. He was not arena rock, which was the third one. You think about Air Supply, Styx, Kansas. He was not that. He just kind of was like in the middle of all those things. He was almost like, he was like John Cusack in Say Anything. Actually, he kind of, do you know what I mean? He had jock friends and he had nerd friends and he had like chess club friends and stuff like that. Totally. He was not any of those things. He was all of those things. And for me, kind of Tom Petty is like that. He, he wasn't as kind of simplistic as like a CCR, but simplicity was his thing. That was his magic for me. The urgency of his vocal. There was no frills. There was no pretense. It was just all out simple rock in a time when rock was amazing. Like the best period of rock for me was, in the 90s, the like late 70s, early 80s. And he was one of the best for that reason. Yeah.
Benmont Tench, the piano player, keyboardist, organ, he said that. He's like, it was all about simplicity. He said if it was too complicated, then like we felt it was too complicated. If you couldn't sit down and play it just on a piano, if you couldn't sit down and just play it on a guitar, it was too complicated. Mm-hmm. And it was all about keeping it simple in the rhythms and through the music, and then taking the songs and the melodies and making them as famous as you know them today.
Oh man. But that's the magic of this record. The songs are just the songs. There's no glam. Mm-hmm. There's no packaging. It's just the power of the simple music. He's like an everyman. He's a dude.
Yeah, totally. Oh man. Yeah. So good. This was, man, I never really put this album up there mm-hmm. as a favorite, but it's recently become like, one of my absolute all-time favorite Tom Petty
it's crazy
albums.
Good.
Yeah.
So it was on the Billboard Top 200 for 7 weeks at number 2. It was stuck there. Do you know what was right above it, holding it down?
The Wall. Mm-hmm. The Bloody Wall by Pink Floyd.
Tom Petty said, I love Pink Floyd, but I didn't love them that year.
Didn't love them that year. Not at all. You can't. Not a chance. I know. Oh, man. And, frig. Okay. All right. What do we want to do here? You want to break down a little bit of history? You want to get into it? What do you want to do? I could talk all night.
Talk to me about Tom. I know that this is your show.
This is the guy, made the band in Gainesville, Florida with, Mike Campbell, Benmont Tench. But of course, there's always a beginning. So he had a couple bands ahead of this. And, what's absolutely insane? He met Elvis Presley when he was just a kid, and that was part of, it was just a quick little Like his uncle was shooting a film with Elvis and said, "Come on over," or his aunt said, "Come on down to the set. You'll meet Elvis. It'll be cool." So met Elvis. Well, Elvis kind of looked at him, gave him a head nod, and then that was it. But he was like, "Oh man, this is it. Like that's like, my introduction to music and things like that." But his dad was like super rough around the edges, very verbally and physically abusive to him. And like to the point where like his brother and his mom would try and step in and like stop their dad, and their dad really wanted him to be a man, so he took him out hunting, and just Tom just never took to any of that kind of stuff. But his dad was like, take a gun, shoot something. They were fishing in a boat. He said he punched an alligator in the eyes just to show him how tough he was. Then he grabbed a rattlesnake by the tail and whipped it around his head and then snapped its neck. And Tom was like, this is insane. Like, this is not me. I don't want to be this.
Yeah.
And so he dealt with that as a kid. And then first person to buy him his guitar, his dad.
Oh.
Yeah, when he was getting into music. And then his dad was like, then Tom started playing. He started learning some songs and playing some music and learning his own tunes. And anytime people come over, his dad would be like, "Hey, play them that song." And next thing you know, his dad was like kind of, championing his musical endeavors. Yeah. But, also Tom and the guys, long hair was not cool at the time either. So his dad really did not like that he had long hair. But it was just like also buying him the musical instruments to get him started. So he started with his band, the Sundowners, and they would basically play school dances. And, it's kind of the same way the Beatles happened. And Beatles were a big influence on him as well. The Ed Sullivan Night, he watched that along with every other, future rock and roller. And huge influence on him there. And he was like, this is it. Like, that's the ticket. Like, that's the magic. Find your friends, find your people, and then start making music together. And that's really what held the band together for, through the beginnings. But they kind of did the same thing the Beatles did. They played and they played and they played. And that's just how he got good. And that's how he just kept getting better. I mean, not only did he love it, but your 10,000 hours. He did just like the Beatles would play their 8-hour sets in Germany and across Europe. Petty would play, these 5-hour sets with the band, and, just continually get better and better and better. So they went from the Sundowners, became the Epics, and after the Epics, they became what a lot of people know them to have become as Mudcrutch, and kind of went on from there. And
did he put Mudcrutch back together before he passed away?
Yeah, they did. They did have an album. The one big song I know on that is "I Don't Scare Easy." It's a great song. See, like, the best thing about Tom Petty is there's so many things, like just song titles that I'll just take and like put into sentences. And a big one from this, Damn the Torpedoes is, "Don't do me like that," which is actually, something that his dad would say to him as well, which is where he got the line from. But yeah, like, "I don't scare easy." Like, I don't know, I'll just bring that up out of nowhere, right? It's just, oh man, it's great. Just great. But yeah, he did. He revived Mudcrutch for a bit. And that was the band that he used to go in and get a record deal with as Mudcrutch. And, so, they made some demos. It was him, Mike Campbell, Ben Mott, and another guy on drums. Of course, I can't remember his name, but there's another guy on drums. And they recorded a few demos, and then he went to L.A. with the demo tapes, and he was bouncing from label to label, went into a phone booth to make a few more phone calls and try to find some more record label phone numbers. He looked on the ground in the phone booth, and there was a piece of paper with all of the record labels and their phone numbers.
No. Somebody dropped it.
Somebody dropped it, or, dismissively was like, "This, I can't do it." So, like, two feelings he said he had. He was like, "This is amazing. Yeah. I have all the phone numbers." Then he's like, "How many people are trying to do this?"
Yeah.
right? What's going on here?
That's right.
So Buddy took it, he picked it up, and so they went around to Playboy Records, they went to London Records, they went to MGM, they went to Capitol,
Wow.
and he just walked in with the tape, and he was like, "Hey, here we want to make an album. What do you think?" Playboy exec played it for like 30 seconds, cut it off, sent him out. London and Capitol Records were a little more. Capitol Records said they would record another single, and they're like, "No, we've got a single, we've got demos, we want to do an album." They're like, "Well, no, you record a single, then you do an album." So they're like, "Oh, we'll think about it." Went to London Records. London Records said, "This is great. Let's do it. Let's cut an album." And so they were like, "Oh my God, all right, great, we've got this." And then so we went back, told everybody we're going to do this, and then that's when Denny Cordell of Shelter Records called him and said, "I want to produce your stuff." And they're like, "Sorry, we're already going to do something with London." And he was like, "Just stop by in Oklahoma on your way to LA, and I will, let's talk." Anyways, they ended up going with Denny Cordell, Shelter Records, and ABC Records as well at the time, and that's when they recorded their first two albums. Obviously, Tom Petty's self-titled debut, and then You're Gonna Get It was number 2.
And then I think that ABC was bought by MCA, right?
And that's where the whole legal affair came in with album number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So this was, and the crazy thing about this is how just like it changed contracts essentially. This whole fiasco changed contract and contract writing forever.
Yeah. But the way that I see that whole thing, in essence, the story goes, I think that MCA kind of swallowed up ABC, and he stood to lose his tapes and everything. Like he would have just kind of gotten kicked around. So he, employed a couple of tactics. He didn't hand over the tapes. They wanted to sue. He declared bankruptcy. So he was always kind of keeping them at bay. And eventually they gave him his own boutique label, which was called, what was it called? Something Street Records.
Well, Backstreet Records was the label that wanted to pick him up, and yeah, that's who ended up he going under. Yeah, exactly.
They created that label mostly for him, I believe, because he put up such a stir. And that's what I was going to say. I see this as like, a David and Goliath story. He basically said, screw you, I'm calling all the shots. And they said, no, you're not. And he said, well, watch. And he did. And they put that record out and it killed. And he was right. And he won.
Yep.
And that's badass.
Totally. Well, and the main issue was that once they were not to be under any other label. So if ABC folded, then the contract was null and void. But because MCA swallowed them up, they're like, you can just forget about that contract. But within the contract as well, they had given over not only their song, the distributing, but they also handed over. He didn't realize he handed over publishing. So that was the big thing, was that they were taking his publishing, which means that he didn't own his songs. But he didn't know that at the time. And he said that he was under duress. So it was like, if you don't sign and give us, your distribution, then you also have to sign. You also have to give us your publishing. He's like, I thought publishing was just like songbooks or something like that. And so that was his, guys. Right?
These poor artists just get
well, exactly,
dragged through the mud, right?
Right. I mean, again, that's what they did with the young kids, right? They had the kids, if they didn't have any real legal representation to actually go through and properly go through this. And so, yeah, every week or whatever, he would end up with the lawyers and he would just say, oh, not going to give it over. What great. Do you know the story about the recordings at the end of every session?
Right. They would hide them, and they didn't tell him where they were because he didn't want to know.
Exactly.
Because I think that they threatened to take the recordings, right? MCA did, because they were their property.
Yeah.
So he had a studio assistant hide them in different places around the city or whatever.
Yeah. So good.
So
he was like, at the end of every recording session, you take these down and you hide them and don't tell me where they are. So when I'm in court, right. I'm not lying when I say I don't know where they are.
And they were all in different locations.
they think they were in the back of a trunk every time, but just somewhere else. He said they also had done drills to see how fast they could get the tapes off the reels into the canisters, into the boxes, and into the trunk and gone. Yeah.
Wow.
So crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, but man, I mean, just like, again, he stood up for his own stuff, and like that's the biggest thing, right? And that's what I love about him. He stood up for him, he stood up for his music, and again, he stood up for his fans. And then you just like, that's why I just love the guy. And obviously his music is absolutely timeless. Like, you could have a 2 or 3 hour Tom Petty concert and know every single song that he plays in those 3 hours.
The greatest hits catalog that he had. And I saw him. That's funny that you touch on that, because I saw him at when it was called the Molson Amphitheater. Now it's the Bud Stage, but and it was the greatest hits. Like, I knew every song that he played. There was no deep cuts, but I was fine with that, because he played like "Here Comes My Girl," like all the way through. Right? It was just like, oh my God, this guy's got such a catalog.
Absolutely. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Want to go through a couple of those numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then lastly, so produced by Jimmy Iovine. They ended up dropping Denny Cordell, who produced his first two. Things just weren't working out anymore. And funny enough, third album for Tom Petty, Born to Run, third album for Bruce Springsteen. And then he also did a Patti Smith album I'm not too familiar with, but that was also her third record. That Jimmy Iovine produced. So he said he was a big fan of Third Records, knew Tom's music, and
you just reminded me of something. Patti Smith, I think Jimmy Iovine had a Patti Smith song called, I think he had "Because the Night," which was one of her biggest hits, and I think that's
the album.
What, did he talk to Springsteen? Like, I think he kind of like leveraged somehow, because I can't remember how that story went, but anyway, he engineered that record. He just kind of was like sniffing around, right? And then he made a couple of very deft moves by connecting people, and then all of a sudden he raised his profile, and he was, he became a producer very quickly.
Very quickly. In fact, I mean, I think he was expected to come in and produce by himself or engineer, and instead he brought an engineer with him to work on this album, which kind of caught Tom and the guys off guard a little bit. But,
he watched very closely that, we talked about Springsteen being a taskmaster, right? Like spending 10 hours trying to get the right drum sound.
Oh, yeah.
And Iovine watched that very closely and recognized the merits of that, and brought that same mindset into Damn the Torpedoes, to the point where a couple guys quit the band.
From like Tom Petty's band, from the Heartbreakers. Yeah, well, definitely
Campbell
Stan.
left for a little while.
Campbell left because of the tension in the room, but he never actually quit. Stan either quit or was fired. They can't actually recall, but So the drum sounds on this album are fantastic. I mean, it sounds great. This whole album sounds absolutely incredible. Not just sonically, but even just the way that these guys put all the music together. But Shelly Yakis was the engineer, and what he did was he took Stan Lynch, the drummer. He took him out shopping for a new drum kit. He's like, the reason why your drums sound punk ass is because they are punk ass. So we gotta go get you a new drum kit, and we'll start there. So
that's funny.
Yeah. So that's what he did, and it took hours, and it drove Stan nuts. And eventually Stan quit or was fired. They tried bringing in a couple different drummers, but just didn't have the Heartbreaker feel. And they said go get Stan back. And within a couple takes they had something for one of the songs they were working on. But it wasn't good. I mean, Stan was difficult anyways. They ended up firing him around the Wildflowers recordings in '94. So it was always difficult. It was like, they were like, oh, what do you and Stan, like, do you guys fight about songwriting? Do you guys fight about, and Tom's like, everything. We fight about everything. And
Right.
Stan was a big part of the Heartbreakers sounding as good as they did, that you couldn't just get rid of them until they absolutely had to. And until they found Steve Ferroni, who was just absolutely monstrous on the kid anyways. Okay, great. So let's get into it then. Yeah, geez. Sorry. Yeah, sick. Refugee.
Love, 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 love.
I mean, yeah.
So this song for me, I know this is your show, so you're gonna do all the talking, but like, this is a special song just because, like I said before, I consider this album one of the great records in one of the great rock and roll periods ever. Right, this is truly one of the great rock albums in my opinion, and this song is kind of the flagship song, that makes a great record just because it's so textbook. Like the vocal is textbook rock vocal stuff. That urgency, like the whole thing, but going into the choruses, right? And before the solos, like, he's just shredding his voice and it's so real and so raw. And it's just like, it gives you goosebumps listening to it.
100%, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I remember hearing this song like when I was really getting into Tom Petty, and I was like, I know this song.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know how, but I know this song. Fantastic song. I mean, took Tom like 10, 15 minutes to write
really?
lyrics to it. Yeah. Yeah. So Mike Campbell would write a lot and record a lot of just on his own. He just have a 4-track or 2-track recorder. He'd just record, a rhythm and then a bit of a lead, and he'd send it to Tom, and Tom would listen to it, and he'd walk around and write music to it. So this is one of those songs that Mike wrote and sent over to him. And yeah, it is just absolutely, like it just kind of came to him. And there is, again, percussion. I mean, the lead, the organs, like the way that everything, this band just knew how to make everything come together. Mm-hmm. And that's why like every single song is perfect. But there's the shaker, the shaker on the song. With like if you listen into it on there, it's like, mm-hmm. right. It's always in there. And it's funny because I was watching the Damn the Torpedoes classic albums thing, and they do like the tracks and they eliminate audio.
Yeah, I love that.
And so they eliminated the shaker, and it is like a completely different song. And it's almost like the drums are too slow. And then you bring the shaker in, and all of a sudden you have this momentum to the song that is just brilliant and perfect.
Isn't that crazy?
And yeah. And you know who brought the shaker in?
No.
Jim Keltner. So
really?
Jim Keltner, yeah, drummer. He drummed for who the Beatles, Procol Harum, and like he's kind of like a session drummer guy. Mm-hmm. He was standing out in the hallway, and he could hear them playing. He was shaking, and then Tom went outside, and Jim's like, "You know what that song needs is a shaker." And so Tom was like, "All right, go on in, lay the shaker down," and they did. And it's actually like it's a huge part of just driving the rhythm of this song. It's unbelievable.
Right. That is so great. I love that stuff. Had he not been outside.
Right? It might just have just like a completely different feel. So
totally. That's cool.
Yeah. And Refugee recorded, I think they did about 150 takes of that song.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. All the way through. So that song, all of their songs on this album are all not like one takes, but like
mm-hmm.
they're full takes. So they recorded them a bunch of times, but there was no splicing takes together. Yes, there's overdubs, but the full song is recorded live off the floor, as we've talked about, in their entirety, and until they got it the way that they wanted it to, which is why it drove Stan absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm. But Petty he's a purist. He was a Del Shannon fan. He was a Roy Orbison fan. Like he goes all the way back.
Yep.
And that's how he kind of wanted to proceed, as far as I know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's
live off the floor.
Del Shannon, that's where he would steal Howie, the future bassist, from how he used to play in Del Shannon's band.
That's right.
And stole him from there. But the band with Ron Blair on bass was great. for these guys. Again, this is just perfect. There's a great story of these guys going from one European country to Germany, and they all had hash on them, and it was legal where they had it. It wasn't Amsterdam. It was Holland maybe.
Okay.
And they had hash on them, and they were going to Germany where it was illegal to have hash on them. And so they all had like their bricks or whatever of hash, and turns out they found a pipe in Stan's bag as they were going over there, and as they were all kind of like you know trying to get rid of everything, everybody kind of just threw all their stuff out. They found the pipe. Ron Blair took the hash and put it in his mouth.
Oh God!
And that's where he hid it. And so everybody threw it out, and he looked at, and Tom like looked at Ron, and Ron just smiled, and it was all in his teeth. So when they found the pipe in Stan's bag, they all brought them into holding, and they were supposed to be going to play a TV gig in Germany at this point. So they were in holding, and Ron Blair ended up swallowing a huge amount of hash.
Oh God!
And so they have the recording. They show like the TV recording, and it's like Tom's like, there's a very glassy-eyed Ron Blair playing the bass because he is just stoned off his face, and they play some of his like just isolate some of his bass lines on it, and he is absolutely ripping it up. Like again, and it comes back to the Rolling Stones, right? These guys knew how to get messed up and then go out and still perform because that's what they do.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that story. But
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah. All right. Here comes my girl.
Awesome, right?
Right. Yeah.
What do you say? Is this an old Mudcrutch song?
Don't Do Me Like That actually is an old Mudcrutch. Actually,
okay.
This one might be as well, but definitely Don't Do Me Like That.
I just love, in Refugee you hear the kind of shredder vocal, but then in this song you hear kind of that deep kind of southern drawl, right? Especially when right before the lead break comes or just after it happens, you hear, and I love this about the song, you hear Petty say, "Watch her walk.
Watch your walk."
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like,
Totally,
oh man, that's so cool.
Yeah. And you got to put that on a little bit. Like he had a bit of a southern drawl, but he says like, I didn't have a southern drawl like some people in Gainesville did, or even like some of my family members did. So yeah, this is another Mike Campbell song that Tom was listening to when he would record demos and send it to Tom to write off of. So yeah, Mike came up with the guitar and the rhythm of this, but yeah, and also something where he felt like he wasn't quite sure how to start it. So he had, he was listening to it, and then until he kind of got that narrative sort of speak for the verses, he wasn't quite sure how to approach it. It kind of just came out of nowhere, and then he did that narrative, that kind of narration, and he was like, yeah, that fits the song. That's the right feel. And then obviously, as we know, it goes into a great pre-chorus and chorus, and
Yeah.
also just like, again, timeless, man. Like all these songs are just so great. Like, and Here Comes My Girl, right? You're like, what a perfect song. Like this is like almost like a perfect wedding song too, It's amazing.
Yeah. This music
Comes
has
My Girl.
endured. 79, this came out. October 79. Crazy.
I mean, musically, yeah, it sounds like it's older for sure, but
That's okay.
It's but that's obviously what lends to it. I mean, older's cool now, right? But
Whether or not it's cool, I like that. I like when albums sound like they were recorded in the year that they were,
Yeah, and could still stand the test
up.
of time.
Mhm.
Oh, it's so good. Even the losers.
This is
What do you
cool
say?
because I love the story behind this song, and you obviously know it.
Yeah, but hit me with it because maybe I don't. I love because you still know more than I do, Brent. So
No,
bring
I
it.
don't know.
Bring
I
it.
don't know. I love all this stuff, right? I love the lore.
Yeah.
And this is one of those songs where, I always wondered what this was about, because it's kind of like Tom Petty is.
It's about John Cusack and Say Anything.
The underdog, like the classic underdog, right?
100%. Yeah.
And so this song was about a girl that he had a crush on named Cindy in junior high, and she never gave him the time of day. And then he was at a party apparently one night, and she did give him the time of day.
Yeah.
And the next morning she told him, sorry, it's not going to be a relationship. And he was like, oh, but they had that one night, right?
Yeah.
And if you listen to the lyrics, it's about like, we smoked cigarettes and we stared at the moon. And he says like, it couldn't have been easy to forget about me, but it's about like, he had that one night with her, and he never forgot about it.
Hey man, even the losers get
lucky sometimes. That's right. It's so cool.
It's perfect. And the even more perfect part is how that chorus came out of nowhere during the recording. He did not have the chorus of that song until he stood in the recording booth.
No way.
Ready to record it. He said he went in there. He said he's like, I don't think I told anybody, but I had all that song down except for the chorus.
No way.
And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was like, I'm ready to record this thing. Let's get in there and let's do it. And so they started playing it. And then when the chorus came, he just sang, even the losers get lucky sometimes. Just right there on the spot.
Wow. Crazy, eh?
Brilliant. But he talks about like, it's just like, that's you, when you're in the right space, when you're surrounded by, I mean, you've got to look, there's also genius minds, right? Like Benmont Tench was an absolutely prodigious piano player. This guy, in like, I don't even know if he was a teenager, and he sat down at a piano in a music store and played all of Sgt. Pepper's from beginning to end. On the piano, just by memory, just playing. He's an absolutely insane piano player. Mike Campbell, unbelievable guitar player. But Tom Petty as a songwriter, right, is like, I mean, that's just what they do. That's what they're like kind of born with. So I mean, like, but at the same time, yeah, you got to be in the right space as an artist, in the right atmosphere, surrounded by the right people, and sometimes those things just come to you, and intuition, altruistic, senses, whatever you want to look at it. I mean, it's just unbelievable how some of that stuff comes through. The beginning of this song, the beginning.
Oh, yeah, the woman's voice.
It's just the normal noises in here.
Campbell's wife, right?
Campbell's wife, yeah. It's so good. I guess he's like, what's that noise? It was like the dryers or something were going, and she's like, it's just the normal noises in here. And then the song kicks off.
I heard it was the washing machine or something. He used to record demos, and he would get sour when he would hear noises. And that was her response, and he thought it was funny, so he kept it on, and it made the record, yeah.
That's great. I love that stuff. Yeah, even the losers. Again, one of the songs that I heard when I started getting on Tom Petty, and I'm like, I know this song. You just know it. You just know the song. Shadow of a Doubt. Complex Kid.
There's some, Petty wears his influences on his sleeve, and the one in here for me is Dylan. You can hear that I think it's right before the first chorus, he kind of drawls the line, like really kind of like, the way that,
yeah.
Dylan did that. Like he would kind of just like, you know, and Petty deliberately does it a couple times in the song, actually.
I mean, if you listen to old, like 1975 Mudcrutch, it's Bob Dylan all over the place. Sounds just like him. I mean, that's what you would do, right? You just, and you hear a lot of, even in this, and I mean, every song, like with Mike Campbell, Chuck Berry, and those great, like 2-string solos that would come in throughout this, right? So they really did wear their influences. And even Benmont, again, like I love listening to this guy talk. He's amazing. He's like, I'll turn on the radio and I'll hear a song that I was like, oh yeah, I stole from that. Oh, I took from that. And like he's like that's what we did, but we made it inherently our own. They made it. Shadow of a Doubt is So good. I love the beginning of this song. Like, or just the riff. The whole riff through the song is amazing.
This song sounds like a hit. Like this could have been a hit for me. It never was, but it could have been.
Century City.
Again, nod to the greats, right? Like you hear a lot of Chuck Berry in the solo here.
Oh yeah.
Just that, like you said, that two. It's like literally the Ace Frehley like solo, like the the Keith Richards thing, and that's where he stole it from. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Who stole it from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but cool because it's almost like an homage, right? It's like a little nod.
Definitely. And this is a song that nods to the whole legal dispute that was going on with the band. Century City was this place in LA with all of the buildings where all the lawyers worked. And that's where Tom found himself every week going during the recording of this. So he's, sings about going to Century City.
Really?
Sometimes I want to leave you. Sometimes I want to go. Right. So, but then he finds he loves LA. He loved LA, and that was like it became his home. So he loved everything about LA until all of these legal things started going on. He had to go to this one place all the time to fight these battles, and that was just where this song came from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They said he would sit back, put his feet up on the tables, and start picking his fingers with a knife when he would have these conversations with the lawyers. And they're saying I don't think he meant to do it on purpose. He just did it, and they just thought he was just this punk ass kid, which he was. Yeah. And that's when they eventually just gave in. They're like, you know what, fine, right? Because I think it was still that they would be under MCA with Backstreet, but that he would just own the publishing and all that kind of stuff. So, because everybody wanted him. Everybody wanted to own him, from, Ahmet Ertegun and, A&M. All those people
Clive
wanted
Davis.
him, right? Clive Davis, exactly, right? And all those guys wanted him. He was hot. And so they were like, oh, you got to try and keep this guy. So they did. And, yeah, like you mentioned, putting it under their own label was the way that it would work out.
Yeah, that was his little boutique label.
100%.
Yeah. He won.
Don't do me like that.
Gee, what's the story behind this tune? He almost gave this away.
Jay Giles Band.
To Jay, because it's true. It sounds like a it sounds like a Jay Giles Band, right?
Totally.
And again, 79, Jay Giles Band is a band that sometimes you forget, Centerfold, Breeze Frame.
Yeah.
Man,
right.
So good.
They
so
opened.
good.
They opened for Jay Giles Band at one point as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's actually really interesting. So this was the one that was recorded with Mudcrutch, but you want to get the Jay Giles Band. There's another song on You're Gonna Get It that called Magnolia, and he actually written to give that to Roger McGuinn. McGuinn didn't take it, so he took it and did it. But he said he wrote a song for the Isley Brothers.
Yeah.
And they didn't want it because he wrote it and it sounded like the Isley Brothers. He realized that when people ask you to write a song for them, they want to write a song that sounds like Tom Petty. They want you to write them a Tom Petty song. They don't want Tom Petty to write an Isley Brothers song. They don't want Tom Petty to write this person's song. They want to be able to record and play a Tom Petty song.
You know what I was just thinking? Think about the Traveling Wilburys. Think about how cool that was for Tom Petty himself, right? So think about who is in that band. So Roy Orbison, who he loved. The ELO guy, what's his bloody name again?
Jeff Lynne.
George Harrison, another huge hero to Tom Petty.
Yep.
Right? Dylan, of
Bob
course.
Dylan.
So the only guy really missing was Del Shannon.
Right.
And it would have been complete for the Tom Petty fan club of all
no
the.
kidding.
That's so cool that he did that.
Absolutely. Well, I think Keltner actually would have ended up playing some drums with him at some point as well. But oh my God, what a band, man! I mean, they talk about going to get Roy Orbison to join that band. And they were like nervous. They all, okay, so imagine you're Roy Orbison. Yeah, you're amazing. You're Roy Orbison. But you walk backstage to your room, and Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, and George Harrison are all standing there going, hey, you want to start a band? And he said yes. And they were like, oh, and we were all giddy because Roy said yes. And you're like, of course he said
Of course
yes.
he's gonna say yes.
Of course Roy Orbison is going to say yes to 3. Like, you think he doesn't know about you guys? That was one moment where I was like, yeah, come on, guy. I know it was probably amazing for you, but don't discredit yourselves.
That's actually a really funny thing is you think about Roy Orbison, like that's a great example of how you see yourself versus how other people see you, right?
Right.
So Roy was kind of on in the years at that point, even, and so he kind of, and he wasn't like, he kind of almost was like goth, right? He had those dark glasses and he was a little bit pallid and stuff, and he had like Pretty Woman back in the day and Crying and all this stuff, but his time kind of had passed at that point. Harrison came back and he had, When We Were Fab and a couple of hits in the 80s, and, Lynn had what he had, and so did Dylan. I can see why Orbison would be like, what do you want me, in your little band for? I'll definitely do it.
Yeah.
So it was,
Right.
it was great for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's funny that they were like, oh my God.
Yeah. Right.
Roy
Oh my
said
God.
yes.
Wait, he said yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, even for Petty to play with Bob Dylan, tour with him, they even talk about the Heartbreakers being the best band Bob Dylan, aside from the band that Bob Dylan ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, that's how good the Heartbreakers are.
It was a crack band.
It's amazing.
Like Tench and Campbell, like unbelievable.
Absolutely.
So good.
Yeah. I mean, and again, Howie coming in with the backing vocals, the harmonies. I mean, that was one thing like Petty would say is like, if you're gonna be a heartbreaker, you have to be able to hit the harmonies. If you can't hit the harmonies, you can't be a heartbreaker. I mean, and it's hilarious. Like, and like if you look at watch some of those music videos, they're absolutely hilarious. Like Here Comes My Girl, the music video. Like just the dynamic, the way they shoot it, and the dynamic the band has, and like even Stan on the drums is singing, and like they're looking at each other, and they're giving these looks. Like it was just this amazing, incredibly amazing dynamic. And I didn't really finish how like they formed, but like the whole thing with Denny Cordell and Tom Petty and Mudcrutch didn't really pan out. They ended up wanting Tom Petty solo, and that didn't. Tom was like, sorry band, like they just want me. Benmont and Stan ended up starting their own band, and they brought Mike Campbell in because the whole Mudcrutch thing kind of dissolved. And then Tom saw these guys and was like, okay, let's start Tom Petty. And they tried to come up with like a few different names. They wanted to be like Tom wanted the King Bees, Tom Petty and the King Bees, and they were like no. And then they came up with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And anyways, that's where they would go on with that. But yeah, just like incredible chemistry, and he did everything he could to keep that band together. Mike Campbell was supposed to go to school, and he's like, don't go to school, we'll write music and we'll make hits, and you don't have to go to school. He's like, I didn't know that was going to happen. And then Campbell's like, well, what about the army? Because at that time Vietnam was going on. He's like, well, don't worry, we'll figure out the army. He's like, I don't know how we're going to figure out the army. And then Benmont was the son of a judge, and like high profile judge, and he had to go to Benmont's dad and convince his dad to allow him to drop out of school and be part of the band.
Wasn't his name like Benmont Tench the Third? Is that right?
Probably.
I think so. Yeah, he comes from a very affluent family. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like just to keep that band together, for him to recognize what they had, and even when he met Mike Campbell, like Mike Campbell was just sitting in the back room of the back room they were sitting in, and he was talking with the drummer of the band of Mudcrutch, and he's like, I really wish we had another rhythm guitar. And the drummer was like, my buddy plays rhythm guitar. And he's like, hey Mike, you play a rhythm guitar? And he's like, I guess so. So he came walking out, and he had this old Japanese electric guitar, and Tom's like, oh God, this is going to be terrible. And he played Johnny Be Good from beginning to end and absolutely ripped it. And Tom's like, you're in the band. And from then on, the way that the band comes together, everything the chemistry that forms from this is absolutely incredible through all of these, really from Tom bringing everyone and keeping everyone together. It's incredible.
Yep.
I digress again. You tell me. You tell me.
Good tune.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excuse me? Just good?
I mean, the thing is, again, the tune stack, like this is front heavy, right? Like this is front loaded. All the really great songs are at the beginning of this record for me.
1 through 6
I'd say.
of 9?
Yeah. There's only 9 tunes on the record, I think.
There are,
But
yeah.
Yeah, the last 3. I mean, like, we can go through the last 3.
Yeah.
What Are You Doing in My Life is pretty good. But like Louisiana Rain doesn't fit on the record for me. Do you find that?
No, I love this song, so I feel like it's I just love it. So maybe that's my problem. But
No. Take us through the tunes then.
No, it's okay. No, I think because you're right. You tell me there's not a whole lot there, right? There's not a whole lot even anybody talks about. What I love about You Tell Me is just this like cool ba-na-ba-bum-bum-ba-na, right? Again, you hear the way that the keys come in. You hear the way that the drums come in. It's just the way that everything fits together. I mean, it just showcases them in so many different ways. And that's the whole thing with this whole album, is that there's different parts of each song that really bring out the best in every musician. And what I just love about You Tell Me is just how they kind of keep all that together in a bit of a cool groove, this neat R&B feel, right? It's just so groovy. And What Do You Do in My Life? I agree. Again, it's an interesting song. But it's like this cool like piano, like it's just again, everything comes together. It's absolutely brilliant and perfect and a ton of fun. And then Louisiana Rain is a great send off. It has this kind of like cool like jackpot sound at the beginning.
Yeah. I should go back and listen to it. I just remember hearing this record and going, that last song doesn't seem to fit on here for some reason.
Well, it's kind of like their ballad, right? It's kind of the ballad on the album. So they it's an older song as well. And actually they had kind of recorded this before, and Iveen said, no, let's bring it back and put it on the album to to close it out. But they had an engineer from England who spent some time in Texas, and he was on like a lot of uppers, and that's who Tom was thinking about when he was writing this song. And it's just like, I don't know, I just love this. It kind of harkens back to their southern country feel, and brings a little bit of that to the album, that I think is just kind of a nice way to send it off. Yeah.
I'll go back and listen to it.
Louisiana Rain. It's so good. Like, it's so good.
See, that's what I mean. It doesn't, it sounds more like, maybe not the Eagles, but it sounds kind of not Tom Petty to me.
Huh.
I don't know who it is, but this sounds like it should be with another artist.
Well, you said the Eagles. I think that's kind of a good descriptor.
It's Eagles-ish. There's another band that it sounds a lot like from this period, and I can't think of who the band is right now, but it's not Tom Petty. You know what I mean? It'll come to me probably after we stop recording. Of course.
No, I'm just too biased. I just love too much about everything Tom Petty that I'm like, this is like, just fits, works for me. I love this song.
I love the record.
Yeah, it's a great melody. Actually, and so just to kind of wrap it up, so Iveen, when Tom came to him with the songs, Iveen was like, so what do you got? And he played him Refugee and Here Comes My Girl. And Iveen was like, that's all you need. He's like, I've never said that to anybody else since. But that's it. Those are the only 2 songs you need.
I saw an interview where Iveen said that. He played him demos of those two songs, and he said, "I'd never said that before, and I've never said that since. You don't need any more songs."
That's right. That's right.
In that same interview, he said they sat around and listened to all the songs that the band brought in. And he started laughing. And they're like, "Why are you laughing at our music? Like, why are you laughing?" He goes, "No, man." He goes, "You guys, we're all going to be millionaires." And then they all started laughing.
Oh, frig. And they were.
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible album.
Yeah.
So,
there
Brent,
you go, man. What do you give this one, Alex?
Oh no, I was going to ask you. What do you give Damn the Torpedoes, Brent?
I would give this just on the
swear to
merits
God.
of.
I swear to God, if you say anything less, then sorry, go on.
I'm going to give it a 1 plus 4. No, it's just like I said, this is truly one of the great rock albums. You know, Louisiana Rain's it's passable, it's fine. I don't know. I just love the whole attitude of this record. It's definitely a 5 for me.
It's definitely a 5.
Yeah,
of course.
Very, very important record. If I was thinking about this earlier. If you wanted to demonstrate, like you wanted to kind of explain rock to somebody, you would play, the vocal for Refugee for them, and you would say, "This is rock and roll. This is what it should. This is it." If I could give like one example, I think I would give Refugee.
So good. If you want, though, a really cool podcast to listen to, there's one called the Tom Petty Project. This is a random guy out of like Europe who just like doing like dissecting each of the songs. So I got some information from him, but obviously I've got books and I've watched a lot of the documentary and documentaries and stuff like that. But a really cool podcast called the Tom Petty Project, where this guy does like breakdowns even of like, oh, and here they're playing in these chords, and they go to the like technical stuff as well. So if that fits your fancy, he goes into that kind of thing as well.
I like that.
But yeah, really cool podcast to check out there. So, yep.
I was thinking when you said that, the reason why I said what I did, I was thinking about Tom Petty's Sirius XM show. Do you remember that? Was that the
Tom
thing
Petty
for the
Radio
show, though? Was that it?
Yeah.
I thought
man.
It was called something else. Wasn't it called? I thought it had a different name. Maybe I'm thinking of Little Steven's show. They both did such a great job with like obscure tunes you'd never heard before, right?
So that's the great part about his radio station, is that like, yeah, you hear basically the things that either influenced him or what he was listening to growing up. But yeah, as far as I know, it's just called Tom Petty Radio on Sirius XM. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really cool. Great, learning vehicle to learn about what was going on back then in music, because there's so much, so uncharted. All the obvious stuff, and we talk about genealogy all the time, like the obvious, Beatles, Stones, but like all the peripherals. Like Petty did a great job of saying, okay, in 1967, this guy talked to that guy, and then they went over here and did this, and this was the result, and then the song, and it's like, holy shit, like who is this? And then it leads to something else, and it was so cool, right?
Totally, man.
Yeah.
It's great. Okay, well, what's next, my friend?
I think we have to do, we don't have a format anymore. We're not following anything.
No, we had a little one there. It was cool. But yeah.
I'm gonna pick records out of the air now.
Let's do it. Okay, back to this. I love it.
So let's do, this is a super classic and it's so good. Let's do Rumors by Fleetwood Mac.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Stevie Nicks, big Tom Petty fan. She said that if Tom Petty asked her to join Tom Petty on the Heartbreakers, she probably would have quit Fleetwood Mac to do it.
Are you serious?
100%. She absolutely loved Tom Petty. She toured with him for a good portion later on, but she loved him so much. And of course, he would give
dragging my heart around. Yeah.
He gave her that song. It went to number 1, and The Waiting went to number 2, and he was pissed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Amazing. Cool. Rumors.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. Okay.
Great, man. Well, hey, thanks for giving me a little bit of airtime. I hope I delivered a little bit.
You did. It was great.
A little bit more of Tom Petty. I went off on some tangents, but that's all I really know how to do.
It was your time. It was your hour, my friend.
That's right. Did the way I wanted to do it. That's what Tom Petty would have done.
That's right. David and Goliath.
WWTPD.
What
would Tom Petty do? WWTPD. What would Tom Petty do?
Oh my God.
I'm
is
gonna
that
make
a thing?
a bracelet. It is now. Same with timeless rock, Brent.
All these things are trending on the internet. You're gonna break the internet with all your goofy
telling you.
WWTPD.
TPD.
Oh my God.
All
you were
right,
doing so well until
until the end.
Yeah.
I know. You know what I didn't happen?
What?
I didn't even sneak the title of the album in at the
Oh,
beginning.
that's right.
We just got into it. So
Well, you know what? That's probably a good idea because it was a little
I was
pressure on
watching
you.
U-571, and the minute that submarine blew up, I was like, "Damn, the torpedoes!"
You had to get it in there, right?
Which actually they named because of all the legal stuff they were going through. They were like,
I
"Let's
know.
just like, damn the torpedoes, go forward."
Full speed ahead.
We can
Damn the
keep full
torpedoes.
speed ahead. That's right. We can keep going. We should stop. I should stop. Brent, thanks, man. We'll see you. We'll see you in a couple weeks for rumors. Fleetwood Mac.
All right.